Hello everybody, welcome to another short video on Splunk Observability. I'm Dan Gray from Summerford, and today we're going to be talking about Log Observer Connect. So Log Observer Connect allows you to see your data in any context. You can visualize the real-time metrics and traces for a specific log event in the same interface for more context. No code, no problem. It enables you to perform queries or searches in a codeless and intuitive interface with pre-packaged dashboards and filters, and we'll see that in just a moment. It enables you to click through and examine the logs that you're looking at on Observability Cloud, and it will bring you through to your normal Splunk environment where those logs live, and you'll be able to interrogate them in Splunk's search and reporting app for more advanced log analysis if so required. So here we are in Splunk Observability Cloud, but we're not currently looking at Log Observer, we're in APM and we're looking at a service map. And what we can see from this service map, there's some sort of problem with our payment service. And what Observability Cloud enables us to do is to click on that payment service, and down here in the bottom right we have a button that says Logs. And if I click through, what we will see is that we've been brought through now into Log Observer, and we're looking at the logs that are related to the payment service at the time window that we were looking at. So without using any SPL or any code, we were able to interrogate and bring back the logs that we're specifically interested in, only the logs that are related to the payment service, and during the time window then when there was a problem. Because even in a tiny application, there are a large amount of logs that are generated, and it can be very difficult to find the specific logs that matter to the incident that we're investigating. With Observability Cloud we can remove some of that problem. So now's a good point to talk about what logs can do for us. So we have metrics, which will enable you to find out if you have a problem, traces, which will enable you to find out where the problem is, and we've identified that's in our payment service. Now logs will enable us to find out what the problem is. Now how are we going to do that? There's a few different ways we can do that in Log Observer. So here we have the logs table, which has all of the logs that we are currently interested in. On the right hand side we have a field sidebar. These are the fields that are associated with the events that we've pulled back, and we can use that to interrogate it, and we also have a timeline here across the top. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at the fields that we have available for us, and I'm going to just search for the severity field. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to include all logs with this field, and we can see here that across the top here the filter of severity has been added. Next I'm going to take a look at the field version, the version field. In the version field, this is the version of our application. So we have two versions of our application. I'm going to add that to the filter. And now we're looking at all the events that have a severity, so it's going to be some sort of error or info message, and all of the events that contain information about the version of the application that was running on. So we can see here at a glance that the vast majority of the events are running on version 350.10, but there are still some on legacy version. And what we could do at this point is click through and we'll see information about what's happening here. So it's related to the payment service, as we already know, and we can see that a transaction has been processed. And we can also see that that's been done on the 0.9 version of our application. If I click into an error, we can see here that the message field in there is telling us that the payment has failed due to an invalid API token. And we can see that the version of our application is the 350.10 version. Now we could do that for the rest of the logs, but that would be very time consuming, so what we can do is we can use the group by feature up here, and I have a hunch that our error is something related to the version of our application that we've deployed. So we've just rolled out a new version of the application and all these errors have started flooding in, so let's see if my hunch is correct. So I'm going to group them by severity. So severity, if I can type, and version. I'm going to go ahead and apply that. And what that shows us here is that all of the events with a severity of error are associated with the events that have a version of 350.10, and all of the events that are of an info level severity are associated with 350.9. Now, if there was a mix of errors and infos across the different versions, we would have at least 4 different colours to our columns. So what that's shows me is that all of the events with error are coming from that version. So if I've just clicked that there and added that to the filter. So here we are in our Splunk Observability Cloud, and you might be expecting to see Log Observer, but we're not currently looking at that. We're looking at a service map in APM. So to set the scene of this video, we've currently just rolled out a new version of our application, and our users are reporting problems with the checkout service. They're seeing sluggish response times when they're trying to buy stuff from our store. So what I've done is I've checked out a number of metrics and traces which can tell us if we have a problem and where the problem is, and what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at our logs, which will hopefully tell us what the problem is. Now, an application, even a small application such as this one, can generate a lot of logs. It can make it hard to find the specific logs that matter to the actual incident that we're investigating. Thankfully, Splunk Observability can solve this problem by showing us our logs in context. So what I've done there is I've clicked the payment service, and as I've done that, this little button down in the bottom right has come to life. So I'll click that there, and we can see it's related logs. So I'm going to click this button, show me the logs for the payment service in our environment. Seamlessly I'm brought through now to Log Observer. This is what it looks like. And we are only going to be seeing logs that are related to our payment service during the time window that we were looking at. Now, a quick tour of Log Observer. We've got a time chart across the top here. We've got the logs table, which contains all the logs that we might be interested in. And we've got the fields sidebar here, which contains all the fields that the events have that we are pulling through from our either Splunk Cloud or our Splunk on-prem. So what we might do to find out what's going on is we could just click through here, and if we click one of these info level logs, we can see the raw event that's generated this log. So we can see the severity of info. We can see that a transaction's been processed, and we can see a version of our app. Those are probably the most important fields that we want to look at. And we can click on an error, and again it brings us straight into there. We can see the severity of error, and see the different version of our app. That's the newer version that's showing up an error. And we can see a message that might tell us, hopefully, and it does tell us in this case what's going wrong. We can see that a payment processing has failed due to an invalid API token. So is this just coincidence, or is this something to do with us rolling out our new version of our application? So what we could do is we could use the fields sidebar here. So if we look for version, we can see that we have events which have both versions of our apps that are included. So we could add that to the filter, so I'll do that now. Include all logs with this field. That's knocked down the total number of events a little bit, but not enough for us to make any deductions. Next, we could add any events that have a severity level in there. Include all logs with this field. Now, it just so happens that all of the logs with a severity level also have a version level for our application, so that hasn't helped very much at all. Now, I have a hunch that whatever's going wrong, the invalid API token, might be related to the rollout of the new version of the application. So what we can do is we can use the group by feature here. And if I choose to group by version and severity, oh, it's hopefully did not follow there, and I click the apply button, now what's going to happen here is that from this little indicator here on the side of the graph, it's going to helpfully show us that all events that have a version of 350.10 also contain severity of error, and all of the events that have version 350.9 contain severity of info. If there was a mix and match and some of the old versions had errors and some of the new versions had info, we'd have 4 different colours on our chart there. But as it is, we've just got two colours, so we can see that what I said is true. And after you've done this, you might take a look in the logs. And again, the message field holds true in all of the versions of our app at 350.10. It's telling us that the payment has failed due to an invalid API token. What that will enable us to do to rectify this problem is roll back, because we can see that there's no errors in our 350.9 version of our application. So to rectify our problems, we'll be able to roll back to the previous version, and then functionality will be restored for our users. So what we've been able to do there in Log Observer is, as designed, identify what the problem is, and then we've been able to come up with a plan to mitigate that problem. We're going to roll back our app to the previous version. If you enjoyed that short video on Splunk Observability Log Observer, here's a few resources that you might be interested in. We do hold workshops on Splunk Observability that you're welcome to join and get hands-on with observability, within which we'll see Log Observer and all the other components of observability, APM and real user monitoring. If you have any questions, feel free to email in at info@Summerford-Associates. If you'd like to keep notified about what Summerford Associates are doing and what workshops and webinars we might be hosting in the coming months, check us out on LinkedIn, and if you've missed a webinar and you'd be interested in catching up, take a look at our YouTube channel, which contains a host of videos about Splunk Observability, Splunk Core and many other products.